I have been racking my brain trying to figure out what to teach about during this difficult time. Should we do something new? Should we keep going with talking about folks meeting God in the Bible? But finally, I've decided that I'm going to teach the thing I know to be true, and that is Jesus. You see, in the high school Sunday school class, we had been working our way through the book of Mark during Lent. And for now, that's what we're going to keep doing on Sunday evenings. Starting with this story from Mark. Now, the verse that we are studying tonight is Mark 5, verses 35 through 42. While Jesus was still speaking with her, messengers came from the synagogue's leader's house, saying to Jairus, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" But Jesus overheard the report and said to the synagogue leader, "Don't be afraid. Just keep trusting." He didn't allow anyone to follow him except Peter, James, and John, James's brother. They came to the synagogue leader's house, and he saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "What's all this commotion and crying about? The child isn't dead. She's only sleeping." They laughed at him, but he threw them all out. Then, taking the child's parents and his disciples with him, he went to the room where the child was. Taking her hand, he said to her, "Talith koum," which means, "Young woman, get up." Suddenly the young woman got up and began to walk around. She was only 12 years old. They were shocked. In this story, we find Jesus, as we often find Jesus, speaking to a crowd of people. Jesus was not very good at social distancing, and he was speaking with a loud crowd teaching, a crowd that was pressing in on him so that a woman got close enough to Jesus to touch the hem of his garment. What happened next, after that healing, is one of the defining moments of Jesus' ministry here on earth. During all that commotion and afterwards, when he was talking with the woman, he heard them say, "Your daughter is dead." Right now, even if you feel like you aren't paying attention to the news, you might have overheard a lot of stuff. You might have overheard how hospitals in Italy are overrun, or how the number of infected deaths keeps growing every day. What we can overhear can be overwhelming. I mean, I think we all feel a little like the guy who was being told, "Your daughter's dead, don't bother Jesus." But lucky for that man, and lucky for us, it wasn't just anyone who overheard about his daughter. It was Jesus. You see, Jesus' response was simple and short. Don't be afraid, keep trusting. 6 words in English. 6 words that make all the difference. Don't be afraid. This is something I've been struggling with since the beginning of all this. I've been afraid of this since before we shut everything down. Reading Reddit on news about the virus that was ravaging China, wondering what happens when it comes here. I've been afraid because I'm far away from my home state and my family that are high risk of this disease. I've been afraid for you students at Highland, for all the stuff that you would be missing. I've been afraid for my family, for the stress that it causes everyone. I've been afraid for friends and former students who are medical professionals and on the front lines, trying to save people any way they can. And I've been afraid for myself, because I'm in a higher risk than the average person my age. But here in the depths of this fear is where Jesus meets us and tells us, don't be afraid. You might be thinking the same thing, and I'm sure the father of the girl was thinking, what do you mean don't be afraid? Our world is ending. My daughter is dead. It won't be the same without her. However, for us, it might be more like, I can't hang out with my friends. I can't go on about my life the way I used to. Or even, I just hate doing my schoolwork online. But Jesus knew something that man didn't. He knows what happens next. And so he says, just keep trusting. And that trust drives out anxious fear that he was feeling, because trust in Jesus is knowing that something better is coming, knowing that even with all the changes in our life, that God is still God and he cares for us. Trust doesn't allow us to sit in our fear, but calls us to take a step out in faith and rely on God for what comes next. If we are comparing the current situation we find ourselves in this story, this is the point we find ourselves in. Jesus telling us, don't be afraid. Just keep trusting. What are we to trust in, though? We can always trust in Jesus, that he loved us and died for us on the cross, and regardless of what's going on in the world, we have assurance of salvation that he offers. But there are many other things we can trust in. Our doctors, nurses, and scientists that are fighting this thing. Our leaders who are calling us to do what we need to do to help flatten the curve. Our parents who are then stuck inside with us or at work doing their best. Our teachers who, by and large, are having to learn a whole new way to educate their students. If you really think about it, there are a whole lot of places to find hope in right now, and that can help us fight fear. However, it's what comes next in this story that really gives me hope. You see, after he gets to the man's house, Jesus saw all kinds of commotion. People were screaming and crying. Jesus said to them, "She's not dead, but she's asleep." And in a house filled with crying and wailing, another sound was heard, that of laughter. They were laughing at Jesus, who had not just told him that the girl was dead, but just asleep. This Jesus person must be crazy. Jesus didn't appreciate being laughed at, however, and kicked them all out. And he took the child's hands, and he uttered two words that echo throughout the Gospels. Talith koum, which means, "Young woman, get up." And she did, and everyone present was shocked. Jesus raised this girl from the dead. Death is supposed to be final, but Jesus showed that he had the last say. That no matter how bleak it seems, he was the one in control. And I think we have one of these moments in our future, when a miracle finally happens in this situation, through science, medicine, or faith. Right now, we may feel like people in the house, crying and weeping, but when someone tells us there's hope, laughing at them. But we're followers of Jesus. We know that there's hope. And that at some point Jesus is going to say to the world, "Get up," that we aren't dead, but we're merely sleeping. This COVID-19 thing will pass. And there may be lots of pain before we get to that point. We have to realize there's hope. Hope in science, hope in medicine, hope in our leaders, hope in our neighbors, hope in our teachers, parents, and families. But mostly for those of us who have trust in Jesus, I hope that the one who was resurrected can be the one who resurrects the world. So in the end, I want to leave you with the words of Jesus when grieving father came to him. Don't be afraid. Keep trusting.